Have you ever wondered which Pokemon has the biggest weenie? Ah, yeah, me neither, except for that one time when I definitely did that and I've made a bracket and I forced my Twitch chat to go region by region to vote to determine which Pokemon has the biggest PP. And by PP, I definitely don't mean power points. We looked at a number of factors, typing is relevant, certainly. Rock type, that's obviously a plus. Dragon, Steel, Dark. I won't explain why any of those are beneficial if you can't figure it out for yourself. Maybe this video just isn't for you. Negatives include flying type, not a lot of birds hanging on, you know what I mean? Grass type, bug. It's not quite what we look for here. Now, evolution is generally preferable, right? A later evolution Pokemon is probably going to be hanging more than a lower evolution, but there are exceptions. Look at this guy. Kinda shriveled up at this point, but before he evolved, he was hanging dong. So, without further ado, let's get to Gen 1. So right off the bat, one of the first names that probably comes to mind is Charizard. And I understand why, because I think people have this perception of Charizard as like this giant kind of dragony thing. Granted, it doesn't have a dragon typing without a Mega Evolution, blah, blah, blah. Charizard is 5'7" and a shade under 200 pounds. Now, granted, you don't have to be an enormous Pokemon to have an enormous Pokemon dong, but it helps. So we do need to factor in these Pokemon sizes, right? It's something that should be in the back of your mind. Try to really contextualize, visualize these Pokemon, because it's going to matter. Now, there are some Pokemon where, you kind of ask yourself some questions, right? You look at Dugtrio, for example, and you're just like, well, is that just 3 dicks? And there's even like some images that suggest that Dugtrio is just 3 really buff dudes under the ground cuddling. Now, I also want to throw a little asterisk on Ditto, because Ditto technically is going to kind of automatically tie the winner. We ultimately chose to disqualify Ditto. Now, Mewtwo literally made in a lab, and scientists are freaks. You think they didn't give him a huge weenie? Let's be real here. Rhydon has an ability called Rockhead, and I don't know a lot about Rhino Penis, but they don't call them Rhino Pills for nothing. Onix, much like Dugtrio, drew some debate about, is this thing just a giant dick as well? And if not, does it even have one? Ultimately, you'll see the bracket here, we determined that Dragonite was our winner in Generation 1. And I'll give you a more in-depth breakdown of our victors once we get to the final bracket. You see, Dragonite will be going up against the winners of Generation 2, Generation 3, etc., to determine who is the biggest. But for now, Dragonite is our winner of Generation 1. So we move on to Generation 2. Let's address the elephant in the room. And I don't mean Donphan, although he is in the bracket. Typhlosion has been quite the controversial figure of late. He's found himself in the news. We did this bracket before the whole Game Freak leaks situation occurred. Out of respect for the victims, we would not have included him otherwise, but, here we are. We had the same debate about Onix that we had about Steelix. Ultimately, a lot of spirited discussion. At the end of the day, Entei moves on to be our Gen 2 champion. In Gen 3, Aggron made some waves as both a steel and a rock typing, which, as we previously established, are both very desirable. Milotic ultimately disqualified because we determined that Milotic is less likely to have a penis and more likely to have a cloaca. Ultimately, all things being considered, Wailord was our Generation 3 champion. In Generation 4, we noted that Obama Snow is built like an NBA center at 7'3", 299 pounds. Grass typing has not done well to this point, but we had to give a shout out at those statistics, right? You've seen Shaq's feet, and he's bigger than Shaq. Mamoswine pulled up a big upset over Palkia, but ended up falling short, losing to Arceus. In Generation 5, Reshiram takes down Terrakion and Zekrom takes out Cobalion, Reshiram ultimately being our Gen 5 champion. Having seen some of the contenders and gathering a better understanding of what makes up a good Pokemon general, we start getting a little stingier in the next generation. Only 5 Pokemon make the bracket for Gen 6. Ultimately, Yveltal, a flying type, takes the win. We reach Generation 7, and I believe Buzzwole is the only bug to make the entire bracket, although unfortunately it falls short, losing to Solgaleo. Meanwhile, Ultra Necrozma loses to Mudsdale, who also goes on to beat Solgaleo. Mudsdale takes out several legendary Pokemon. Xurkitree in the first round, Guzzlord in the second round, and ultimately Mudsdale declared the victor of Gen 7. It's worth noting, Mudsdale at 8'2" has over 2,000 pounds of weight to it. Where's all that weight going? Perhaps to the dong. Stay tuned to find out. We head to Gen 8, where we have the tallest of all the Pokemon. That's right, it's time for Eternatus. Now this was hotly contested, believe it or not, because at 65 feet tall, he's only 2,094 pounds. And so quite the opposite of what we just discussed with Mudsdale. Does he not have dick weight? Does he even have a penis? Who could say? Meanwhile, Ursaluna versus Glastrier settled the timeless debate of Bearcock versus Horsecock. Ultimately, it's Elephantcock taking home the victory as Copperjaw takes out Eternatus. That brings us, of course, to Gen 9, where Sea Titan takes out Great Tusk and Baxcalibur takes out Iron Crown, with Sea Titan ultimately claiming the win for the final generation of Pokemon. It is worth noting there are 2 whales. Stay tuned to find out who will win in the final bracket. The first matchup featured Dragonite and Yveltal. Dragonite, a 7'3", 460-pound dragon, ultimately took the win over Yveltal, who is 19 feet tall, only weighs 447 pounds. A lot of that height's in the wings, that ain't helping you. Unfortunately for Dragonite, it faced Wailord in the next round, where it would lose. This gives us an opportunity to actually inject a little bit of science into what we're doing here, because Wailord is roughly half the size of a blue whale. The blue whale has the largest weenie in the animal kingdom. A blue whale's average weenie is between 8 feet and 2 inches and 9 feet and 8 inches. Now, even if we go on the low end, having that leaves us with an estimated 4 feet and an inch for Wailord. That's bigger than some of these Pokemon. You know, it's going to be a very uphill battle for anyone to dethrone Wailord. But let's see what we got. In the next round, we got Reshiram versus Copperajah. Copperajah ultimately getting the victory, the 9'10", 1,400-pound elephant. That's a tough matchup. Let's see what goes next. Arceus went up against Sea Titan. Now, interestingly, Sea Titan also a whale, but Sea Titan only 14 feet tall compared to Wailord's 47 feet. Interestingly as well, Wailord weighed 877 pounds. Sea Titan weighs nearly double that, despite being so much smaller. So Sea Titan's packing something into that little tight spot, right? Finally in this round, Mudsdale took out Entei. Mudsdale, the 8'2", 2,000-pound horse. That's also going to be hard to beat. We've got some real contenders now. We're getting to the meat of this. So, Whalecock versus Elephantcock? Come on, you know what it is. Wailord takes home the victory. Sea Titan versus Mudsdale. Mudsdale pulls it out. So, we have one final battle. Mudsdale took out one whale. Could Mudsdale take out 2 whales? Not this time, chat. Not this time, because Wailord is the Lord of the Cock Ring, or something. Whale Lord of the Cock... I didn't have this joke prepared. Hold on. The Whale Lord of the Cock... Wailord has a huge fucking penis. He's hanging dong. It's everywhere. It's enormous. You can't avoid it. Wailord, it was inevitable. You knew it. Everyone knew it. Wailord takes home the title of the biggest peepee in the Pokemon Kingdom. If you have any comments, concerns, disagreements, you want to make fun of the way I mispronounced some Pokemon's names, drop that in the comments. Maybe considering following me on twitch.tv/Dr_Spaghetti, where you could get involved in the voting on things like this. I don't know how to end a YouTube video.
Oh God.
I crucified 12 people, and the first one to successfully resurrect wins $420. Go away.